the Open Fight Night Thanksgiving edition of Impact Wrestling, plus the very latest in wrestling-related news and entertainment. It's the RCWR show, Weekend Report, and it begins right now.
Hold one, arm drag. Whoa! This is
Brett screwed Brett.
Who are you to doubt El Dandy? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Brett screwed Brett.
hold two, arm bar.
Hey, get a nice shot of the brand new Mr. and Mrs. Hunter Hurst Helmsley.
I hate you. I hate you. I hate your hat. I hate your t-shirts. I hate your wristbands. I hate your shoes. I hate your music. I hate the C Nation. I hate everything that you stand for.
Sodas rule.
Yeah, they do.
Hold three, the moss-covered, three-handle family Gradunzel.
Live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this is the RCWR Show with your host, Lee Sanders.
And coming at you on November 24th, 2012, welcoming you to the weekend edition of the RCWR Show. I'm, of course, as always, the Black Avenger, Lee Sanders. Thank you guys for checking out this episode today. Hopefully you all have had a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. Do hope that if y'all had went out and took care of some shopping, as it was, you know what, Black Friday, hopefully you had scored on some pretty sweet deals. We got the chat room. It's open up and loaded right now. Feel free to jump on in there. It's at blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR Show. You can also interact with us on Facebook at Infinity One Productions. While you're at it, take the time out to like our page and add us as a friend. Not too many people are aware that they can add us as a friend on Facebook. Also follow us on Twitter. That's another way that you can interact with us all the way up until we are off the air. Feel free to do so. Hit us up at Twitter at Infinity One Prod. A lot of great content that we need to get into today. So, without any further ado, let's kick things off by talking about what had happened from this past WWE Raw from Monday night, where WWE Champion CM Punk had celebrated 365 consecutive days as the current champion. It is a feature that men such as the Brahma Bull, the Great One, the People's Champion, The Rock, was not able to obtain. Something that the King of Kings, the Cerebral Assassin, the Game, Triple H, was not able to obtain. Something that the best there is, the best there was, the best that there ever will be, Bret Hitman Hart wasn't able to do. Stone Cold Steve Austin, 316, not able to do it. Heartbreak Kid, Mr. WrestleMania, the Iron Man of Iron Man matches, Shawn Michaels, not able to do. Not even John Cena, not even Edge. The list just goes on and on. CM Punk surpassing so many great WWE, WWF wrestlers, but he is not done yet. CM Punk would reveal that he is going to continue to go forward as he has a new goal in sight, as he's not settling for where he is at right now, as he wants to be the longest reigning WWE champion, period. And by obtaining that, in order to do it, he would need to surpass Pedro Morales and Bruno Sammartino, who held that championship for 7 years straight, folks. WWE Champion CM Punk letting it be known that come June of 2018, I believe the date he gave specific was June 25th of 2018, he will have surpassed Bruno Sammartino's record. And CM Punk shooting high, big time right there, of course. It's no secret, WWE, they have been trying to get Bruno Sammartino to come to the WWE Hall of Fame within recent years, but this time around, more than ever, They want him to be inducted at this year's WrestleMania since it's in the backyard of New Jersey, New York. A lot of hardcore wrestling fans right there. So far, negotiations have not been going well. Still at a stalemate right here. Nice kind of little nod to Bruno Sammartino, but was also a little bit of a knock at the same time. But in either case, CM Punk letting it be known that's the next record he wants to beat. Now, before CM Punk could really celebrate, as he was with Paul Heyman, of course, as always, as after all, he is a Heyman guy. We saw Mr. Feed Me More Ryback crash the scene, looking to get a little bit of payback from what had happened at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, where Ryback was attacked by three men known as Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Romain Reigns, three of these men of which are from the NXT Wrestling Developmental Program from WWE. They attacked Ryback again. They did it exactly the way they did it at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, folks, just before Ryback could feast upon some type of revenge on Punk. These three men came out, they attacked him, and they sent him crashing through another announcer's table. And as we had later found out, right before Raw had went off the air, according to the Spanish announcers, these three men are known as The Shield. Don't really know if that's going to be permanent, but the announcers were calling them The Shield. So that's what we're running off of right now until we have exact confirmation come this Monday night's Raw, where The Shield will be doing an interview with Michael Cole, and they will be addressing their actions within recent weeks, if you want to call it weeks, but you know the gist of it, folks. And it's so funny because this couldn't come at a more better time, because based off of the ratings that had came from Raw this past Monday night, which was not that good, as we had reported that episode respectively, it had pulled in somewhere between the 2.72 rating to 2.76, and for that particular episode of Raw to be coming fresh off of a pay-per-view, that's a little bit of a disappointing number. And as we had said in depth on the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show, I pretty much said straight up, don't be too surprised if the Shield were to break their silence next week as a way to try to maybe see if they can get the ratings just a little bit back up and really get people talking there. And this couldn't come at a more better time. I know some people were looking at this. They're looking at the Shield. They're saying to themselves, this is a knockoff of the Aces and Eights. I know some people are sitting up and they're saying, you know what, WWE is stealing stuff from TNA. You know, I beg to differ when it comes to this whole Shield thing. I know some people want to try to compare it to Aces and Eights, but when it's all said and done, Aces and Eights is pretty much a biker gang. It's a biker club. It is a organization. There's no telling how many people are in this group. I mean, at one time, we have probably seen about maybe 8 guys in that stable, maybe close to 10, whereas the Shield is only 3 men that are making their presence felt. And for those internet wrestling darlings that are out there, they are probably in euphoria seeing their favorites in Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, as they have been looked upon with high regard there for a good couple of years now. For them, this couldn't come at a better time, as these guys are now finally given the opportunity to work on the main roster of WWE. You know, this couldn't come at a better time right now, at a time when the holidays are pretty much here right now. We got Christmas and New Year's left. You know, this is shaping up. If WWE does this right, they got a really good hot storyline on their hands that could take them into 2013. At this rate, if they do it right, this story arc could possibly conclude at this year's WrestleMania, maybe in just a little bit sooner, but I can for sure see this possibly end right around WrestleMania. It just really depends on the strength of these three men and the way that they can deliver in the ring when it comes to the mic. Hey, wrestling-wise, we don't even really need to go there. We know what these men are already capable of, and high praise for Rollins and Ambrose. Romain is still a little bit of a wild card there, as remember, folks, his original background was that he was a football player, so a little bit more timing and seasoning is needed for him. But the other two guys, ready to go. I know a lot of fans are happy about this. I know I was chatting with a few people about this earlier in the week, and they were just ecstatic to see Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins make it up to the main roster. Finally, now they're given that ball, they're given that opportunity. Now it's time to see what they can do. Of course, we got to also address what's happening here with the whole who could be behind it. I know some people are wondering, well, who exactly could be the brains behind this? It could possibly be CM Punk. CM Punk is no stranger when it comes to working stables. He's got that whole society background. He's got that whole the new Nexus, straight edge society is what I was trying to say earlier there, folks. I mean, he's got that history that's there. It would be a no-brainer if he was the brains behind it. Another route that they could go, Brad Maddox could be the one behind it. And it could be a case where Brad Maddox, originally, the Shield, they were doing his bidding. They were acknowledging him, and they were doing whatever dirty work he needed for them to do, but it could have ended up backfiring. Could have been a case of a numbers game. They wanted to go at their own beat, and it's possible we could maybe see Brad Maddox kind of go to the babyface route, but I really don't quite see that happening just yet. I think he works better as that guy that you just can't stand, just get those boos. That seems to be working really well for him. Don't see why he would just all of a sudden switch up. But this is really going to make great television. Can't wait to see what happens. Of course, in the WWE.com exclusive, later on in the week, it was revealed that The Shield had attacked Santino Marella and Tyson Kidd in a backstage segment. So these guys, they are like rabid Wolverines. They are just going where they please, causing their carnage, disappearing, not really answering to authority. Can't wait to see what's going to happen with these guys come Monday night. But again, this couldn't come at a better time. Of course, we also got to talk about the very latest in the AJ Lee scandal, as that had took another turn where John Cena was severely injured as he had a intimate moment with AJ Lee, as two of them had engaged in a kiss, as John Cena was trying to point out to Vicky Guerrero, who once again was trying to bring some type of fraudulent evidence, try to present it to the WWE Universe. John Cena letting Vicky Guerrero, WWE Universe, know, hey, you want to get people talking, give them something to talk about? Well, do this. And he kisses AJ, and he feels that he made his point, but AJ Lee, she got caught up in the moment. She liked what happened. She wanted more, and she ended up kissing John Cena, and was really glad that segment was over with, because we saw Dolph Ziggler come out, and he attacked the C-Nation leader, and John Cena tried to chase Dolph Ziggler into the backstage area, but unfortunately he had landed funny on his leg, and that pretty much had set the tone for the night, as we saw John Cena favoring that leg. He had it bandaged up, looked like he was injured, but there was no telling how severe the injury was. Of course, AJ Lee going to Vicky Guerrero, asking what she's going to do about the matter. Vicky Guerrero letting her know she's not going to do anything. AJ Lee taking it upon herself, going into the men's locker room to confront Dolph Ziggler, where heated words were exchanged. AJ Lee lashing out physically at Dolph Ziggler, as John Cena had to come in and restrain her Dolph Ziggler attacking John Cena, tackling him through the urinal stalls, beating up that leg even more, and that was the main question of the night going into the next day. Just how exactly was John Cena's leg? Was this a case where he was going to be out on injury again? And as I had said on the Tuesday Night Wrestling Report, unless you had saw the X-rays come out, as that's what WWE loves to do when one of their favorite wrestlers is injured, unless you saw them doing surgery, as they have been known to show surgery footage of the wrestlers being operated on, as they try to use it for a little montage when they get ready to come back, to just take what had happened with a grain of salt. It was probably an injury storyline. And we'll have the very latest on how John Cena is doing, as we still got to talk about WWE Main Event and we have to talk about SmackDown. But was very pleased with this newest development between Dolph Ziggler, John Cena. What can you say? Mr. Show-Off, it looks like WWE brass, they are really starting to get behind Dolph Ziggler now. They know that time is near. They know that it's almost time to pull that trigger and have him cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase for that World Heavyweight Championship. Looks like they're getting him ready, and what better way to get ready than to work with a guy that has been at the dance 10 times as a WWE champion in John Cena. Really great development that had happened right there between those two guys. Of course, for full coverage of what all you might have missed from WWE Raw this past Monday night, be sure to check out this past Tuesday night's edition of the RCWR Show Wrestling Report Edition, and you can always get that fix of what all you might have missed from WWE Raw every single Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern right here on Blog Talk Radio. Coming up next on the RCWR Show Weekend Report, we're going to take a look at what all had happened from WWE Main Event on the Ion channel this Wednesday, where we had saw Dolph Ziggler take on Miz. That's right, awesome Miz, in what was a great 30-plus minute singles match. I'm going to give you my overall takeaway from that, and we'll also get you guys hooked up on the very latest and what had happened on TNA Wrestling, as it was the open fight night edition of Impact Wrestling. Get you guys hooked up on that, let you know what also happened on SmackDown, very latest in wrestling-related news, and more. So, you're listening to the RCWR Show Weekend Report Edition. We'll be coming right back, folks. Do hang tight.
Tired of those wrestling websites that give you redirects, spyware, weird pop-ups? How about those misleading headlines? Instead of hitting the keyboard in frustration, why not visit InfinityOneProductions.com? Infinity One is the source for wrestling-related news and so much more without all the hassle. Visit InfinityOneProductions.com. Your keyboard will thank you.
Hey guys, Lee Sanders here with the RCWR Show, and I'd like to take this time out to tell you about one or two quick apps that I think you should check out when you get a free moment. First app I'd like to recommend to you is an app from Stitcher. Now, Stitcher allows you to be able to play all our episodes of the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown on your portable devices, such as an Android phone, Kindle Fire, iPad, you name it, it'll be able to play it. So definitely highly recommend that you check that out. It's available for free in the App Store. Stitcher, new and smart way to play radio. Also, another cool app that I'd like to recommend to you all is a new app that came out not too long ago from Apple. That's right, Apple has recently come out with a free podcast app. Now, this app is really cool, folks, because after we are done doing our shows, all you have to do is just subscribe to our episodes. And you can do this by downloading this new free podcast app. All you have to do, visit the App Store on your iPhone or iPad and just search podcast. Once the app is downloaded, you can then type in the name of our shows, the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown, and you'll be able to subscribe. It's that easy. So you have two cool free apps that you can check out and take all our episodes with you on the go. So get to it already. Welcome back to the RCWR show. Black Avenger Lee Sanders here. Now time to talk about what all you might have missed from WWE's Main Event on the Ion channel from this Wednesday, where we saw Dolph Ziggler take on Miz in what was downright a very impressive singles match. I mean, we had got like just over 30 minutes from these guys. They put on one hell of a freaking clinic. One of the best single matches that I have seen on television this calendar year. Really, really high up there. You know, of course, we saw Ziggler, Miz. They were getting into it just before the sound of the bell. Miz letting Dolph Ziggler know that every single time he reaches up and tries to go for that brass ring, Ziggler, he always comes up short. Miz letting Ziggler know that he has not sat up and held that briefcase as long as Ziggler has, that when it counted the most, Miz did what he needed to do. He cashed it in, and we just really saw Miz just sit up and put Ziggler in his place. I mean, some really hot, passionate words that was just being exchanged from these two men, and pretty much we saw Miz letting Ziggler know, hey, you really need to be about it. You really need to step your game up if you're really going to be about it. That was pretty much the Miz message to Dolph Ziggler. You know, this match, I can't stress it enough, and if you guys were not able to see this match, let me just give you an idea of how great this match was. Did I already mention that it was at least 30-plus minutes? I know I did. I just thought I'd say it again. But this was one of those type of matches that after it was done recording on my DVR, I watched it twice, and then when it was time for me to hit the delete button to free up space, I just could not do it. I said, you know what, this match was just too damn good. I just don't want to get rid of it. I can't. I refuse to. And for me, it's a souvenir because the match that we had saw these two guys, it almost made me sit up and say, man, I wonder if Vince McMahon is kind of kicking himself in the butt here, because he gave us a 5-star quality type of match that we should have had to pay for on pay-per-view. That's just how good this match was. Of course, we ended up seeing Dolph Ziggler get the win over Miz. Really intense encounter right there. Of course, also on Main Event, we saw Barrett Barrage, Wade Barrett, defeat Justin Gabriel. Barrett having a pretty solid week right here. Remember, folks, Barrett had eliminated Kofi Kingston on at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, and he also had defeated him on Raw from this past Monday night. Now, by doing that, Barrett won the right to take on the Intercontinental Champion. Of course, we got to talk about the tone that was set for next week's WWE Main Event, as John Cena will be making a first-time appearance on Main Event, and he is going to be wrestling, folks. And check this out. Of all the people that he is going to be taking on, he is going to be facing the intellectual savior. That's right, Damien Sandow. You're welcome. That's going to be a pretty fantastic match right there. I highly doubt it's going to be able to top what Dolph Ziggler and The Miz did, but this match that we're going to have coming up between John Cena, Damien Sandow, here's another scenario right here where Damien Sandow is now going to be presented with a golden opportunity to really prove that he can really be up there with the big boys, as of course Cody Rhodes, he is out right now, severe injury, had a pectoral damage, deltoid damage done. I mean, he got injured in like 3 different places, all on the same side. As if you had watched the episode of WWE Main Event from last Wednesday, you could see clearly where all the injuries had occurred as he was involved in a match. Really hope he has a speedy recovery. Right now, it looks like there's no ETA on when he'll be coming back. But Damien Sandow, he's left blowing in the wind right now. And as I had said on our Tuesday night Wrestling Report edition, Damien Sandow, he's now an opportunity here where WWE, they need to go back to how they were doing him originally, which was having him be in that singles run. And if he can really hold his ground here with John Cena come next week, that might make WWE sit up and try to figure out new things to do with him. Of course, for some of you that might not be aware, WWE Main Event, even though it comes on Wednesdays, it's actually taped on Tuesdays right along with SmackDown. And I mention that for a reason. I want to take a more serious side now, and I want to talk about something that shockingly had happened as a WWE diva, Kaitlyn, had appeared at the SmackDown tapings. She was supposed to be involved in perhaps some type of a match or segment or both. Well, unfortunately, the episode that was to be airing on the Sci-Fi Channel this past Friday night got a little bit of a curveball as the police had popped up at the SmackDown arena and they arrested Kaitlyn. That's right, I did not stutter. They arrested Kaitlyn. Now, it turns out, and this news had first broke out by TMZ.com, they had reported that the police had arrived at the Van Andel Arena where Kaitlyn was arrested right there on the spot as they had a warrant for her arrest. Now, this is all stemming from unpaid parking tickets. Kaitlyn, real name Celeste Bonin, was later released shortly after, posting a $315 bond. Now, she would release a statement to TMZ saying, and I quote, "During a previous visit to Michigan, I was cited for a traffic violation. I am fully cooperating with authorities to resolve the matter." And, you know, a lot of people, they sat up and they were wondering just what exactly is happening with this. Is this going to be the end of Kaitlyn? Is Kaitlyn going to be out of a job? Is she going to be featured and nevered? And we just heard all this stuff that was just going on. And I got to honestly tell you guys, I don't see Kaitlyn being future endeavored. You know, I just think that this is just a case where she probably meant to pay it, but she forgot, or maybe she tried to delegate it to somebody else, and maybe they have forgot to do it. You know, the life of a WWE superstar, it can be a little bit hectic because you got to be concerned about making it to the next venue on time, making sure you're able to put in that time to work out, make sure you're able to get to your hotel room in time, make sure that you hop on that next Greyhound or get that rent-a-car or hop on an airplane, train, whatever to get to the next venue. So, you know, it could be a little bit hard for some wrestlers to be able to sit up and take care of something as small as a traffic ticket violation, you know, and I don't see Kaitlyn being featured endeavor. That's just silly to me. I don't see it happening. If anything, the higher-ups in WWE, they may look at this and they may kind of punish her just a little bit because this happened on pretty much their doorstep, which is pretty much a huge sign of a embarrassment. And it's possible that we could see Kaitlyn be involved in a few squash matches. Her popularity could sink just a little bit. Maybe somebody else might go in her place to take on Eve for the Divas title at the next pay-per-view, which is going to be TLC, coming up December 16th, live on pay-per-view, of course. But, you know, you see something like that, you hear something like that, and, you know, honestly, I mean, come on, Kaitlyn is 26 years old, she's young, she's very beautiful, and if you haven't seen that mugshot, my God, hop on over to our website right now. We got that article up. It's on our main page. Very hot mugshot. Of all the mugshots I have seen of wrestlers that have gotten in trouble over the years, she has the prettiest face for a freaking mugshot. And the lips, oh, the lips. Go check it out right now. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But no, I don't see her being featured in ever. She's going to have to eat a little bit of crap for just a little bit. It wouldn't even surprise me if maybe they kind of pulled her off main WWE programmer for a little bit. Maybe have her go back down to NXT for just a hot minute. But I don't see her being featured in Endeavor. So let's just get that out the way right now. And, you know, I can't help but compare this to what had happened with one of the Brodus Clay dancers. I believe it was Naomi. Remember, she had got set up with a ticket violation, I believe it was, and she didn't want to have anything to do with it. She tried to bribe the police officer. That didn't work out well, and next thing you know, she got arrested. She tried to lie, say that she didn't work for the WWE because she didn't want for the story to break out. She didn't want the embarrassment. She tried to lie and say she had worked at a bank. And WWE, unfortunately, they would find out about it a few days later. And once they had confronted her and asked her what had happened, she came clean. And she had faced, I believe, a 15-day suspension. So, you know, it could be a case where we might see something like that with Kaitlyn. Should be very interesting to see what's going to be happening on next week's or for episodes of Raw, Main Event, SmackDown, and all the other shows, if she's going to be appearing on there or not, if this push that she has is going to be continuing. Because right now it just kind of looked as if Kaitlyn was being set up in a way where she possibly could have been crowned with the Divas title as early as maybe the next pay-per-view coming up. As remember, folks, this little story angle that she's had going on with Eve, it's been happening as early as September. So looked as if maybe it was finally going to start wrapping up there. There's no telling what direction it might go right now. Of course, we got to talk about what all had happened from Thursday night's TNA Impact, where one of the main highlights of the night, it was the open fight night edition of Impact Wrestling, where all the TNA Gut Check winners have made their return. That's right, the only female TNA contestant, Taylor Hendricks. Yum, yum, yum. She had made her return. Christian York made his return. Sam Shaw made his return. First TNA Gut Check winner. You know the name, that's right. Alex Silva, he made his return as well. And also, we had got to see Wes Briscoe have a TNA Gut Check tryout match. And pretty much, this was an episode where all these contestants, they were given the opportunity to challenge anyone on the roster, but they had to pick well. Well, we ended up seeing Sam Shaw have his match against, get this, folks, Sam Shaw challenged Alex Silva. That's right. And in that match, we did see Sam Shaw pick up the victory. We had saw Taylor Hendricks. She challenged the Knockouts champion, Terra, but lost. We had saw Christian York challenge the one and only TNA World Heavyweight Champion Jeff Hardy in what was a really great encounter. Can't stress it enough. Hop on over to the TNA Wrestling's YouTube channel and you can see that match. Hopefully you can still see it in its entirety. Really great match right there. This was pretty much one of those type of episodes that was really kind of coming off like this is a jobber episode. It really came off as if it was a created wrestler episode. It was about letting the generic wrestlers have their shine in the spotlight while the veteran wrestlers were just kicking back, resting, being with their families, whatever. That was really the tone and the vibe that I was picking up. But at the same time, it was still a great open fight night edition. Of course, one of the main meat and potato storylines that we had saw from this past Thursday night's Impact Wrestling had involved Austin Aries, who had promised to call out somebody that he felt was the source for all his problems that he had been experiencing in TNA wrestling so far. And that person that he actually had called out was Brooke Hogan, and Austin Aries had brought into light of incriminating evidence that strongly suggested that Brooke Hogan is in a relationship with one Bully Ray. Now, we ended up seeing Hulk Hogan and Bully Ray come down to the ring and try to get a piece of Austin Aries, but he quickly made his exit. Nice setup for Impact Wrestling next week, as Father Knows Best Hogan is going to be confronting Bully Ray and just asking him, just what are you doing with my daughter, dude? So that should be a pretty interesting moment right there. Of course, Aces and Eights, they had picked their next victim as they had attacked one Eric Young. And, you know, it's so funny, folks, because we're now going into December, and this just continues to look like a long, drawn-out running gag. You know, I am all for those storylines that just make sense, and you can just keep going with it as long as it's got that buzz. But I am just really concerned right now with just where exactly is where's the exit? Where's the end game for this Aces and Eights storyline? Because I'm really just getting the impression that TNA Creative, the writers, producers, they aren't really sure how to end this story properly. It just seems like they just keep trying to put a bandage over an old wound that just continues to be spreading and spreading because it's infected. It's not really being treated properly. I just can't help but wonder what the end result is going to be with this, because the way this is looking right now, this Aces and Eights is going to be going into 2013, and the only thing we're going to know is Devon and what's up, Doc, are the only two people whose faces we see that we know for certain are in Aces and Eights. I just wonder, when are they going to really start unveiling more of these masks, and where exactly do they want to take this storyline? But a lot of fans, we hear the frustrations week after week, and it just continues to grow more and more. A lot of folks very upset at this Aces and Eights angle. They consider it to be one of the main buzzkills right now. You know, if I were to offer my 2 cents on this briefly, it's just really coming off to me as if TNA brass isn't really sure what their next big major story angle is going to be once they get done with the Aces and Eights. I'm kind of getting that impression that if they wrap this up, they aren't really going to have something for the viewers to check out. And, you know, that sends a powerful message when you just got to rely on the same storyline that has now been stretching out for like at least 7 months now. So very curious to see what's going to happen with that. Of course, for full in-depth analysis of this past week's TNA Impact Wrestling, coverage, overall thoughts, check out Impact Showdown Radio from this past Thursday night. And if you want to catch our episodes of Impact Showdown Radio live, as we're always covering the latest from Impact Wrestling, latest in TNA wrestling-related news, hey, be sure to check it out. Impact Showdown Radio, Thursday nights, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. You can check it out right here on Blog Talk Radio. And, of course, as always, for our WWE coverage, check out the Tuesday night edition of the RCWR show. That airs, respectively, at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern, right here on the same site. All right, that's going to do it. We're going to take another commercial break. But when we come right back, folks, we're going to get you guys caught up on what all you might have missed from this past Friday night's SmackDown. And it's going to be time for my favorite part of the show, where we're going to talk about the very latest in entertainment news. Got some really kick-ass album reviews that we're going to have for you all. Going to talk about the latest albums from Soundgarden, Aerosmith, Queensryche's Geoff, Tate. Do want to stick around for that. Show's just getting started. Plenty of showtime left. We'll be coming right back, folks. Do hang tight.
Always on the go? No problem. Subscribe to us in the iTunes and Zune marketplaces by using keywords The RCWR Show. Episodes also available on Stitcher. Download now so you never miss an episode.
And we are back. Hey, do you have an iPod, iTouch, iPad? If you do, then you probably have the iTunes library. Do us a huge favor. Pull up your iTunes library. Click on the iTunes Store. Then click on Podcasts and type in the keywords The RCWR Show. When you do, you'll see our profile with all our episodes pop up. There's actually an option to submit a review. Do us a huge favor, submit a review, because when you do that, you make it easier for the casual wrestling listener to be able to come across our episodes and profile with more ease, as iTunes will recommend to them that they check out our show. And I get asked all the time, hey man, how can I spread the good word about your show? What can I do to help? Well, that's really one great way that you can help, is by submitting a review, as it really helps iTunes recommend it more to people that like wrestling shows. So if you do that for us, we thank you humbly in advance. Even if you check out our shows on a weekly basis, you may call in, or you're always in the chat room. Some of you, you may not feel inclined to be able to do that, but it really does go a long ways. It really does help out. So can't stress it enough. Submit that review. If you already done so, hey, thank you. If you haven't, next time you get that free moment, for sure, submit that review. This is one of those type of shows where, we really try to make it be all about covering wrestling and giving the fans the platform to be able to call into the show and give their thoughts and what have you. But we can't stress it enough. Those reviews, they help out a long way. And it's so funny because we were reading some of the comments that you guys had said earlier in the week and the week before. And it's a conversation that me and Zaya had got into just the other day, where some of y'all were talking about how some of the shows that you check out on BTR, the coverage of wrestling is just really, really bad. Some of you were complaining about how some guys are just coming on, they're just killing airtime, seems like they're reading a script, or they're just reading results and they're just going off the air. It just sounds really bland, really boring. And some of you are also talking about how there seems to be a bunch of kids that's just coming on BTR thinking they can do a show, and they aren't really putting that much of a thought process into it as far as creativity and everything. And, we're really sorry that you come across shows like that, because honestly, you got some folks who, unfortunately, the support system that they have, the friends or close family, whatever, they just don't have the heart to tell them that they really shouldn't be in that type of line of work, that they need to try something else. They don't want to break their heart. And I can't stress it enough. Just because you come on the air and you're talking about wrestling, it really doesn't make you an expert, especially if all you're doing is just reading results. Anybody can read results, even a person that's blind. As long as the results are in Braille, they can read results. So you can't stress it enough. If you've been running into quite a big number of shows that just have left a bitter taste in your mouth, that should give you more ammunition to make sure that you submit a review for us in the iTunes store. And, while you're at it, all you got to do, if you're in front of your desktop or smartphone, you can just type up blogtalkradio.com/the RCWR show. You'll come across our profile page, and there'll actually be an option for you to follow it. And, hey, just follow the prompts, and it'll get you all nice and set up. And, of course, if you always want to be able to interact with us in the chat room, you can do so for free. It's very easy. Registration, it only takes just a few seconds of your time, and boom, you'll be able to interact with us and other people as always. Can't stress it enough. Submit those reviews so that a lot more people will know about the show. And, again, we thank you humbly in advance. So let's talk about what had happened on Friday Night SmackDown from this past week, as we had saw Mr. Show-Off, Dolph Ziggler, in action once again. That's right, folks, where the main event was Randy Orton taking on the Viper, Randy Orton, and this was another classic encounter. Remember, folks, we had just saw these two guys be the final two men at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, where it was Team Ziggler taking on Team Foley. Viper, Randy Orton, he would have had the victory if he would have just sat up and went for the pin, but he wanted to do that punt kick, and it ended up costing him severely, as Dolph Ziggler was able to counter that punt kick, deliver a super kick, and was able to pick up the victory in a huge upset. So here we see these two guys, they were getting it on. And once again, Dolph Ziggler defies the odds as he defeats Randy Orton to give him one of the best weeks in WWE programming that he has not had in quite a long time, just really on a roll. But of course, that victory would not last that long, as we had Dolph Ziggler steal his way to a victory. We automatically saw Ricardo Rodriguez and Alberto Del Rio. They tried to get some of Randy Orton. Now, Randy Orton, he was able to catch Ricardo in time, gave him one devastating RKO. Looking at Alberto Del Rio, obviously Del Rio, Randy Orton, they were not quite done just yet, as they had just had an encounter on Raw earlier this week. These two guys showing signs that they are not done with their rivalry just yet. Dolph Ziggler, in the meantime, who's retreated to the main top stage area, he's looking on, and he gets jumped by John Cena. John Cena trying to get a little bit of payback from Monday night, as John Cena applied that STF to Dolph Ziggler. And of course, we got to talk about the latest development in that whole AJ scandal, as it did carry over into SmackDown, unfortunately, this past Friday night, where we had saw Dolph Ziggler, Vicky Guerrero, they had teamed up, as John Cena was a guest on The Miz's awesome TV show, whatever he's calling it, Miz TV. I know it's going to take me a while, but Miz TV, still getting used to it. Personally, I think it's the highlight reel. That's just me, though. I don't know. Some people might think differently, but I just look at that as the highlight reel. Of course, earlier in the night, Miz, he did have John Cena as a guest on there, and he was trying to ask Cena the hardball questions about what exactly is really going on between himself and AJ Lee. Okay, sure, you might have not have done anything in the past, but what's happening right now based off what came about from that kiss on Monday night? And we saw AJ Lee, she came out, she would explain to John Cena. He didn't have to answer that question. Vicky Guerrero, Dolph Ziggler, they would soon come out, and we kind of got a little bit more insight into possibly what might be happening with Dolph Ziggler, why he is possibly involved in this, as we see Dolph Ziggler bashing AJ and John Cena for possibly being an item, and Dolph Ziggler kind of putting it out there that if it was he that was the one to be possibly in a relationship with AJ, or if he was the one that was kissing her, pretty much he'd make it worth her while. And it actually kind of had Vicky Guerrero kind of look at Dolph like, what's going on here, while defending their relationship, as it is only a business relationship that they have with each other. Yeah, right, folks. But it is what it is right here. But we saw that little slight hint of hesitation in Dolph Ziggler's voice that might have suggested that maybe he and AJ might have had something going on. I just think it's funny how AJ Lee is, man, excuse my poor choice of words, but it's looking exactly the way it's looking right now. AJ Lee just seems to be giving every single guy a turn, if you know what I mean. I mean, we've seen Daniel Bryan get his turn. Kane somewhat got his turn. CM Punk got a turn. Now it looks like John Cena's about to get a turn. Is it possible Dolph Ziggler had got a turn, or maybe he was trying to get a turn and he got shot down? Who knows? But again, the emphasis on Dolph Ziggler having one phenomenal night right there. Had that great segment with everybody involved in that Miz TV segment, then to go out in the main event match later on in the night and be able to get a victory over Randy Orton. Best week Dolph Ziggler has had so far in his wrestling career, so far in the WWE. Of course, other matches that we saw in the night, we saw Ryback defeat Darren Young. That was a really weird one right there because there was not enough of a proper setup for Ryback. I was expecting Ryback to come out, maybe cut some type of a similar promo that he did on Monday Night Raw, where he wanted for the Shield guys to come out, but we didn't even get that. Ryback just came out, he had his match, and he was pretty much done with it. Now, post-match, Titus O'Neil, he had some poor choice words to say for Ryback, because he didn't like the way his little buddy had got whooped, and we saw Ryback give Titus O'Neil shell shock, possibly maybe setting these two guys up to go at it as early as Monday Night Raw. We saw R-Truth get a victory over Antonio Cesaro. We saw Booker T have an exchange of words with Sheamus, as he told Sheamus that he was not going to be wrestling that night, but instead was going to be having a ringside seat in a little VIP section to be watching Big Show in a match, as Big Show was going to be in a handicap match against Kane and Daniel Bryan. And to sweeten the kitty even more, Booker T informed Sheamus that he's well aware that Big Show cheated his way to retain his World Heavyweight Championship, and as a result, Sheamus is going to get another opportunity to take on the Big Show for that World Heavyweight Championship at TLC, as it's going to be in a tables match. That should be pretty solid right there. That's going to be the bookend for their little rivalry, at least it should be. We saw Kofi Kingston defeat Damian Sandow for the Intercontinental Championship, as Wade Barrett was at ringside. As remember, folks, Wade Barrett, he eliminated Kofi Kingston at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Then he beat Kofi in a singles match. Wade Barrett is officially next in line to take on the Intercontinental Champion, and most likely these two will be colliding at TLC. And that was pretty much it for SmackDown. Pretty solid episode of SmackDown that we had got. Definitely love the way that played out, but I can't help but go back to what we had got from Main Event. That was really the cream of the crop right there. And of course, we're now going to go to a new segment of the show, something that we're going to be doing from here on out every single time we do a weekend edition of the RCWR show, where we pick our entertainer of the week. That's right, and our entertainer of the week, first one ever that we're doing here on this first installment here today, it goes to none other than Dolph Ziggler. What can you say about the man? Mr. Show-Off has been backing up everything that he says he is going to do, as he now has his eyes set on defeating one of the biggest people in the WWE right now, aside from CM Punk, John Cena, as he's looking to lay his claim. He's looking to put down that groundwork, getting ready to become a future World Heavyweight Champion. What can you say about Dolph Ziggler? Dolph Ziggler wins for his team at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Then he follows that up with what he had did on Raw from this past Monday night, having that great brawl with John Cena. Then he goes to Main Event and he defeats The Miz. Then you go to SmackDown and he defeats the Viper, Randy Orton. Hands down, best week in wrestling for Mr. Show-Off. Congratulations to Dolph Ziggler, our first entertainer of the week winner. And again, this is a new segment that we're going to be doing for every single weekend edition of the RCWR show. So if you have your names that you would like to submit to us for consideration, you can always hit us up on Twitter at Infinity1Prod and Facebook at Infinity1 Productions. And trust us, we'll take your picks into consideration. But overall, ultimately, the decision that comes down to me, hands down, Dolph Ziggler. I think we all can be in agreement with that. Now time to switch gears, folks, as it's now time to cover the very latest in entertainment news. And let's kick things off talking about Led Zeppelin. That's right, Led Zeppelin. They've recently been making headlines as Jimmy Page, he had recently did a sit-down interview with Rolling Stone, which is available now on newsstands and digital outlets. Jimmy Page had revealed that the main reason why the Led Zeppelin reunion tour didn't happen is because of a busy Robert Plant. That's right. Jimmy Page will point out how he, John Paul Jones, the keyboardist, bassist, Jason Bonham, drummer, son of the late John Bonham, who was the original drummer for Led Zeppelin, he had revealed how the band, they were really ready to go at it. They thought just like the fans when they had did that one-off concert at the O2 Arena in London in 2007, that it was going to lead into them doing a tour. But ultimately, it all had to tie into Robert Plant. They couldn't do anything unless they had Robert Plant. And Plant, he was very busy at the time as he was working on his collaboration with Alison Krauss, as they had went on to do a very successful album, Raising Sand, that went on to win the 2009 Grammy Awards. And so Robert Plant was pretty much busy, and they entertained the idea of trying to go forward with a new singer, and it had resulted in them trying rehearsals with Lenny Kravitz. I know another name that had jumped out there was Steven Tyler of Aerosmith, and they got as far as actually doing rehearsals with him, but just seemed like nothing was really working out there. They had even gave Sammy Hagar of Van Halen Chickenfoot a call, and Sammy Hagar, he had to kind of think about it there and was like, you know what, it's a little bit too late to be doing this. Have to pass. Of course, a few more names have surfaced. Not really too many, but just a couple of more names of people that Jimmy Page and them, they did try to work with, but ultimately they just decided that they just couldn't do it. They had to have Robert Plant, and really that's why we haven't gotten a Led Zeppelin tour, is because of Plant. And it's so funny because currently Plant is doing things with his new band, the Strange Sensation, and it looks like they're going to be in the studio. They're actually in the studio as we speak, getting ready to do a new studio album that should be coming out sometime early next year. It's no wonder why when you hear stuff like that about Robert Plant, why he's probably frowned upon and hated by a lot of folks, especially those hardcore Led Zeppelin fans, because they really want to see those guys get back together. And, I understand where they're coming from. At the same time, Plant has said on several occasions that he doesn't want to be one of those type of singers to be affiliated with a band that just keeps going around playing all their hits. He basically, without knocking them bluntly, he basically suggested that he doesn't want to be like the Rolling Stones and just playing the same old catalogs from years and years back. And I totally understand that. I respect where he's coming from. It is what it is, but honestly, to just imagine what a Led Zeppelin album would be like today, oh man, I can only imagine. I can only speculate. Of course, we got to talk about Stone Temple Pilots and Velvet Revolver's former lead singer, Scott Weiland. Perfect transition here, as he had revealed that he would be interested in reforming Velvet Revolver, maybe doing a reunion, maybe making some new music with them. Now, here's what Scott Weiland had to say about it specifically. And keep in mind, Scott Weiland, he's actually getting ready to prepare for a 5-tour date in the U.S. as he has a new band that's called the Wildabouts, and they're actually going to be getting ready to go into the studio in 2013 to hopefully put out a album of new material. Here's what Scott Weiland had to say about Velvet Revolver, and this is a direct quote. "I'm completely open to it, and I know there are other guys in the band that are completely open to it. There have been some things that have stood in the way that don't have anything to do with the band, just other players, whether it be agents. But now we're sorting things through, and we want to start writing for some big film opportunities that have come our way and try to set things up the way we set things up when we initially got together." So Scott Weiland is trying to capture that lightning in the bottle that came about where they did the song Set Me Free for the Incredible Hulk movie some years back there. And great moment right there like that. He also went on to say, "I think it's the perfect time for Velvet Revolver to get back together. Slash has done some great things, and I look forward to the opportunity to seeing him on my left and seeing Duff McKagan, who in my opinion is without a doubt one of the greatest rock and roll and punk rock bass players of all time. And it's still amazing his shape is more ripped than just about any 25-year-old on the planet. And with Matt and Dave as well, who are just incredible musicians. I think that's exciting to look forward to. It's the old cliche, if the gods of rock want to make it happen, then it will." Now, for some of you that are listening to this, you're probably saying, "Well, gee, Lee, what's going on with Stone Temple Pilots?" And that's a very good question. Here's what he had to say about Stone Temple Pilots, and some of you might be a little disappointed with this little bit of news, but here's what he had to say. Direct quote, "I think we kind of overplayed ourselves by playing the same set over and over. I think the band needs to take some time off and be creative again. I always felt that our creativity and the growth we made within making records as artists was equally as important as we were as a live band. The transition from the core album to where we ended up before we took that time off when I started with Velvet Revolver was enormous. I think we need to get back to that. I don't think that touring consistently with a greatest hits package gets you anywhere. It diminishes things." he is so on point right there, because that's exactly how they were looking the few times that I had saw them, and I was hearing the reports coming from the set list that was being played. You know, Scott Weiland has always been kind of coming off as one of those type of people within recent years to really want to explore all different type of musical directions, wants to keep himself very fresh, and, you know, I totally respect where he's coming from right there. You know, quite honestly, not to mention, you know, one major factor that comes into play is how their last album did. As let's not forget, that album was probably one of the weakest albums that Stone Temple Pilots had ever did, as they didn't even have longtime producer Brendan O'Brien helping them out. It just seemed like it was money every single time they did something with Brendan O'Brien. Very unfortunate that it looks like STP is done for now. Maybe they could do one last hoorah. Who knows? Of course, we have some NXS news for you guys that we got to let you know about. Of course, the late Michael Hutchison, original singer of NXS, as y'all know, he had tragically died back in 1997 at the age of 37. And let's be completely honest here, contrary to the reports that he initially committed a suicide, as we all know from the infamous episode of VH1's Behind the Music, it was not an apparent suicide. There was no note. He had a lot to live for. He had a very cute child, and, you know, basically this was a case of erotic asphyxiation that he had died of. And for those of you that are calling, what is that? You just need to do a Google search and you'll know more about that. But I just said the keyword erotic asphyxiation. That kind of gives you a clue right there what exactly is going on there. If I were to try to let you guys know exactly what it is in a nutshell, basically it's trying to cut the air off from the brain to draw a sexual arousal. That's basically the way I can say it in a nutshell, and the ways of achieving that is pretty extreme, and in this case it was extreme, but nonetheless it looks like a biopic is going to be in the works. That's right, it looks like a movie is going to be in the works. Casting begins next year. This comes at a really good time right now, as the screenwriter for this film, he isn't trying to focus on the taboo stuff. He's trying to focus mainly on Michael Hutchison, the man, the son to a mother, father, you know, what led him to the path of being a rock star, what got him into the path of demons, you know, what were his loves. He's trying to tackle it in that aspect, and I think he's going to be on to something very successful there if it's handled right. This guy has been trying to work on this off and on for the past 10 years, so the fact that he's shown that much interest into this project, that kind of gives me a strong indication that a lot of care is going to be put into this. So very curious to see how this plays out. Of course, in case you guys haven't heard, the surviving members of NXS, they had tried to go forward without Michael Hutchison, as remember, they had did that show on CBS, Rockstar NXS. It was like around the late 2000s, and they had got a new singer in John Stevens. It was pretty much a competition singer show where the winner would be able to join NXS, be their new singer, go into the studio, produce a new album. Now, the whole time that they were with John Stevens, they only had one album to show for, and just earlier this month, the band had announced that after 35 years of being together, that they were going to break up. And I mean, quite honestly, a lot of people, they have different opinions on this. This is my spin on NXS. When it comes to this band, the day that Michael Hutchison had died, unfortunately, NXS had died, because Michael Hutchison was the heartbeat of that group, and you might be able to go out and get a guy that kind of looks like him in a John Stevens and maybe kind of sings like him a little bit, but it's not going to beat the real thing. I mean, heaven forbid something bad happens to Bono from U2. There's just no freaking way you're going to be able to come close to replacing Bono. I don't care how many lookalikes you have. I don't care how many people you might have that's out there that may sound like him. Nothing beats the real thing. So, honestly, when I hear that after 35 years, that doesn't really surprise me whatsoever. Also, I want to let you guys know about Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. Of course, he's got that whole Resistance Pro Wrestling that's going on. Recently, he did a interview where he had reflected on that 1995 album, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. Great freaking 2-disc album, probably one of my favorite Smashing Pumpkins albums of all time. Of course, there's going to be a re-release of this album that's going to be coming on December 3rd, and it's going to be jam-packed with 64 bonus tracks. There's also going to be a live DVD. This is all part of a massive reissue project that Corgan himself is overseeing that's going to see all of the band's albums from 1991 to 2000 be re-released with tons of unreleased demos, B-sides. If you're a Smashing Pumpkins fan, this is really going to be awesome. I believe this is going to be stretched out over the course of 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. You can read a lot more about Billy Corgan's reflections on the Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness album at our website. It's one of the main articles on our homepage. Go check it out. It's a really great read. You'll really appreciate it. And that's pretty much been it. There really hasn't been any much too buzzing in the entertainment field. I know one thing. We want to send a big congratulations to AC/DC as the Grammy committee. They have sat up and they have picked AC/DC's Back in Black as the song that is basically one of those type of songs that is a song of significant historic importance, and they're recognizing it. It's very hard to get in there, but that's one of the songs that the Grammys has picked, a very high honor right there. I could give you guys a lot more mumbo jumbo, but the gist of it, the Grammys, they've picked that song, so congrats to them on that. I know on another side note, it looks like AC/DC also has finally joined iTunes. That's right. They had held out for a long period of time, unknown reasons. They just did not like the idea of their entire catalog being on iTunes, probably due to all the people that were having royalty problems or whatever, but whatever happened, they finally had joined iTunes, so now you can hear all those great albums remixed, remastered for iTunes for your downloading, listening pleasure. Of course, they now join the other bands that had held out for many years. They now join Led Zeppelin. They now join Metallica. They now join the Beatles. There's still a few acts that are out there that haven't gone to it yet. I know one of them is Garth Brooks. For some unknown reason, he still has not done any type of business with iTunes that sees his entire catalog on there. So there's still a few big names that are holding out on that. But great news right there if you're an AC/DC fan. You know, now you don't have to sit up and go with the CDs and all that other stuff. You can now actually download them from the iTunes store. And why would you want to get them anywhere else, guys? I mean, come on. You can get them remastered, remixed in the iTunes library. That's pretty badass right there. All right, so this is what we're going to do right now. We're going to go on ahead and we're going to take a very brief commercial break. It's going to be our last commercial break. Then when we come right back, We're going to get into those reviews for Aerosmith's Music from Another Dimension album. We'll talk about Geoff Tate's new album, Kings and Thieves. We'll talk about Trent Reznor's latest project, How to Destroy Angels, and the return of the mighty Soundgarden, as for the first time in 15 years, they've released a new studio album, and it's called King Animal. We'll give you the final verdicts on all those albums. And we'll also ask the question, with all these rock bands that have made a significant comeback this year, are these bands really coming back for the money, or is this really a case of them just getting the band back together and just doing what they do best, which is just play good music and just kick ass going on tour? I'll chime in my thoughts on that. I'm going to take one last commercial break. So, hang tight. You're listening to the RCWR Show Weekend Report. We'll be coming right back, folks. Hang tight.
Tired of those wrestling websites that give you redirects, spyware, weird pop-ups? How about those misleading headlines? Instead of hitting the keyboard in frustration, why not visit InfinityOneProductions.com? Infinity One is the source for wrestling-related news and so much more without all the hassle. Visit InfinityOneProductions.com. Your keyboard will thank you.
Hey guys, Lee Sanders here with the RCWR Show, and I'd like to take this time out to tell you about one or two quick apps that I think you should check out when you get a free moment. First app I'd like to recommend to you is the app from Stitcher. Now, Stitcher allows you to be able to play all our episodes of the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown on your portable devices, such as an Android phone, Kindle Fire, iPad, you name it, it'll be able to play it. So definitely highly recommend that you check that out. It's available for free in the App Store. Stitcher, new and smart way to play radio. Also, another cool app that I'd like to recommend to you all is a new app that came out not too long ago from Apple. That's right, Apple has recently come out with a free podcast app. Now, this app is really cool, folks, because after we are done doing our shows, all you have to do is just subscribe to our episodes. And you can do this by downloading this new free podcast app. All you have to do, visit the App Store on your iPhone or iPad and just search podcast. Once the app is downloaded, you can then type in the name of our shows, the RCWR Show and Impact Showdown, and you'll be able to subscribe. It's that easy. So you have two cool free apps that you can check out and take all our episodes with you on the go. So get to it already.
Live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., this is the RCWR Show with your host, Lee Sanders.
I'm going to slide in now the lovely co-producer Tammy, who's going to be joining me for this last segment. And, of course, we've been teasing you guys. You know, it's one of my favorite treats of doing the weekend edition of the RCWR Show. We're just talking about some of these great albums that came out. I know some of them had came out amongst the time when TNA, WWE were doing their respective pay-per-views, so there was really no way to really cover it, which was kind of good because it gave me a little bit of time to kick back and marinate and just really embrace the albums that have come out. And I want to start with the biggest name of them all. I want to start with Soundgarden. And co-producer Tammy, I know I was telling you a little bit of what I thought about this album right before we came on the air. And you know, as some of y'all know, I'm a huge Soundgarden fan. I've been following them since God. at least since I was 13. That's how long I have been following them, and I am a big fan of Chris Cornell's solo work. Even the rap R&B album that he put out, a lot of people had trashed that, including Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. But I thought that album was a masterpiece in itself, so underrated. I was looking very forward to getting a hold of this new album. Hell, I even saw these guys in concert at the Patriot Center. What was it, Tammy? Last year?
Mhm.
Yeah, last year I saw them, and they were singing all their hits. And I'm like, wow, this is solid. I can't wait to get a hold of this new album. All right, after 15 years, we're going to get a new Soundgarden, new album. Oh, it's going to kick ass. Now, of course, Soundgarden, they ended up leaving A&M Records. They went on to a new label, and they still had one of their longtime producers by the name of Adam Casper. Now, remember, he had first appeared on Soundgarden's Down on the Upside album that came out in 1996. So he's pretty much been with them ever since. Whatever compilation albums that have been put out there, live albums, he's been the producer behind it. He was actually the producer for the King Animal album. And honestly, and this may come as a shocker to a lot of you when I say this, especially you hardcore Soundgarden fans, you're probably not going to like what I'm getting ready to say, but I got to be real here. I got to keep it honest. This Soundgarden album really was not that impressive. I thought that this album, I don't want to say the album was bad, but it's not what I expected. Now, Chris Cornell, he kept teasing leading up to the release that the album is pretty much picking up right from the flow that they had on the Down on the Upside album. Basically, they were picking up right where they left off with that respected album. And, there are certain tracks that kind of feel as though it's kind of picking up those glory days from the last few albums that had came out. Now, this is just being real here. Now, out of 11 tracks, now there's a deluxe version that's floating around. And the deluxe version, actually, correction, folks, there is 10 tracks. Out of the 10 tracks, there is only 3 that really stand out in my mind. Been Away for Too Long, that is a great opener. I love how that track alone, it just reels you in. If you remember a couple of months back, we actually had played that on the RCWR show, and I mean, that just really had set the tone for the album. You're listening to that track, you're feeling it, you're feeling the lyrics, you're kind of saying to yourself, okay, man, this is solid. Really great opener. But then when you dive into the rest of the album, it just really sounds like a course of just where are these guys exactly going? It was what I kept asking myself as I was listening to this album. But again, Been Away for Too Long, great opener, great track. Tari, that was another great track. Worst Dreams, that was another good track. I'm trying to find other tracks that I thought looked good. I'm looking at the album right now. Eyelids, Mouth, that was a pretty good track as well. Rowing, that track stood out in my mind, especially for bassist Ben Shepherd's work. He was just really letting loose on that track. But overall, out of 13 tracks, I really could only find 3, maybe possibly 4 to like. If you were to ask me straight up, is this a must-have album? As a huge Soundgarden fan, I will let you know, if you're thinking you're going to get a heavy rock album, you're not going to get that with this album. You want to just pick out those key tracks that I had mentioned. Just go with those. Don't buy the album. And, there's a deluxe edition that's floating around, Tammy, where there's like 18 tracks, where basically after the initial studio album is over, you basically hear demos of the songs that you had just heard. And those songs, respectively, I could have done without. Those are just, honestly, they're brutally bad. They pretty much sound the same with some regard to what you hear from the studio finish. And, it's very unfortunate because I know, Tammy, I was telling you how pumped up I was to be seeing the guys come to Washington, D.C. Next year. But, if they're going to be playing a lot of these songs from this album, because nowadays you can see the set list, I don't know. I think I would pass.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy coming from you.
Yeah. Huge Soundgarden fan. I am a huge Soundgarden fan. I was expecting this to be better. Now, don't get me wrong. As far as production value-wise, the album, it comes away very polished off. You can really tell that these guys are just really getting along together. You can feel the chemistry that's just oozing on each track. It really feels like these guys have, you can really feel the weight from all of them, how long it's been since they've jammed together, and time has been very kind to them because, the production value is very good, but, if you're looking for that hard feel from the Down on the Upside album or the Super Unknown album, you're not going to find that on this album. As I say, you just want to pick out those key tracks and be done with it. Hopefully when and if Soundgarden decides that they want to do another album of new material, my best advice for them, I think they should try to see if maybe they could go back to working with producer Michael Beinhorn, who was the guy responsible for producing the Super Unknown album, and that is ranked, of course, Rolling Stone magazine's top 500 greatest albums of all time. I say they need to go back to their core roots on that particular album. And remember, between that album and the Down on the Upside, you could jam to every single track, and both of those albums, respectively, had like about 16, 18 tracks. Hopefully they can kind of go back to that producer, kind of pick up that old magic that they had. But again, scale of 1 to 10, I'd have to give Soundgarden King Animal, I'd have to give it a 5 out of 10. All right, let's talk about Queensryche's Geoff Tate's new album, Kings and Thieves. And Tammy, I know you heard me cursing a little bit as I was talking about this album. God, this album is brutally bad. And Queensryche fans, they're probably going to be like, huh? This album is brutally bad. This album is as bad as Soundgarden's. If I had to sit up and I had to pick my poison, I'd go with the Soundgarden just because, hey, I like Chris Cornell. I like Kim Thao, Ben Shepherd, Matt Cameron. I love those. I'd go with them. This new Queensryche album that we had got from Geoff Tate, and let me not even say Queensryche, because right now he is not even deserving of that title. We'll just call him Geoff Tate, the former singer of Queensryche. Let's just dub him for what it is. Some of the most poorly executed songs that I've ever heard. The lyrics are just really stupid. I wasn't sure if a teenager was writing these songs or what. And I mean, I've just got to butcher this list real quick. And you know what, Tammy? It's funny because, a couple of weeks back, we had actually tried to get Geoff Tate on the show. And it was at a time when I didn't even listen to the album yet. I really just wanted to talk to him about what all was happening in Queensryche. I guess it's good that we ended up not getting him on the show because, if he were to hear this review right now, he'd probably be a little bit pissed off, but I'm keeping it real here. 11 tracks, and there was only 2 tracks that I thought was worth the time. She Slipped Away. It shows a lot of great potential to be a mega hit. I like the lyrics in that one. Great imagery is in my mind. When I hear the lyrics, I can feel the story. I can see the story. I love that, talking about basically a love that's lost. I get that. I like that. The other track I thought was good was Tomorrow. That track really stands out in my mind. Nice 6-minute power ballad. Like that track. The rest of the album, it is just struggling. Dark Money, it shows hints of signs that it could be a really great track, but it just comes up really short. His lyrics are just so beyond simple. It was late Nirvana singer Kurt Cobain that always said, lyrics, melody, you want to pay attention to those. Well, for Geoff Tate right here, and it's really unfortunate because the band that he has backing him up on this album, great execution. I mean, great guitar work, great drum work, great bass work, good. But the lyrics, especially the one song that stands out in my mind, Say You Love It. I wasn't sure if I was listening to Enrique Iglesias. Baby, I like it. I like it. I wasn't sure if that's what I was listening to or what, because that's exactly what it sounded like. And, this gives you an idea of how Geoff Tate's lyrics are for, pretty much a majority of these songs. For Say You Love It, oh, when I put it in you, tell me you love it. Oh, I love it. Say you love it. I love it. It's like, really? This is what you have, dude? This is what you're working with? Again, 2 tracks out of 11 that I liked. Very bad album, and I know it had pissed off a lot of Queensryche fans because they were looking at this and they sat up and said, you know what, this is strictly a case here where Geoff Tate, he's now pulled out 3 bad outings. As remember, the last Queensryche album that had came out, I believe it had came out, I want to say maybe 2010 or 2011. I believe it was called Dedicated to Chaos. That had received a lot of bad reviews, and of course you had that first solo album that Geoff Tate had did. Some people would even go as far as to say that the 2009 release of American Soldier wasn't that good either, but a lot of people frowning upon Geoff Tate right now. I am coming at you guys unbiased. I listen to music of all different genres. You name it, I probably know about it. If I don't know about it, I'm probably getting ready to listen to it. That's how I usually roll. And with this particular album, I actually found myself listening to the Queensryche compilation and favoring that more. So can't stress it enough. Geoff Tate fans, dodge this album. Maybe there will be a better outing from the other members of the original Queensryche band, as they're going to be releasing a new studio album in 2013. Maybe that'll be a better outing, but for right now, I would say scale of 1 to 10, Geoff Tate's Kings and Thieves, I would have to give it a 1 out of 10. Tammy, thoughts?
Wow. That is, yeah. There's are actually words that can't express that quite that bad of a rating. But, honestly, it goes back to, bands who, have tried to reform, or one person from that band trying to kind of go out and take his ball and do it with other people. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Sounds like it's to this case that it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Now, fans, I don't want you guys to sit up and say, well, man, is there anything good you can say about some of the albums that's out right now? Well, yeah, I can. I can tell you that Trent Reznor's latest side project, How to Destroy Angels, they had released a EP, the Omen album, got like about 6 tracks, 30 minutes of stuff. you know, when you get Trent Reznor involved, it's always money. I actually had liked this album. It had me eagerly waiting for the LP. I know Reznor had said that they are working on the actual full-length album. Hopefully it'll come out sometime in early 2013. The Omen album, highly encourage you to pick that up. If you're new to them, I highly recommend that you go pick up their first EP that had came out. I believe it was in 2010. You should also pick up the Lady with the Dragon Tattoo soundtrack, as I know they did a track on there, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of a broader aspect what you can expect when you get ready to listen to How to Destroy Angels. But the Omen EP, I had no problem with that. Great freaking EP, as I said. Biggest complaint, I just wanted more. 1 to 10, I have to give that respectively an 8 out of 10. It's only an 8 out of 10 because I wanted more material from them. Aerosmith's Music from Another Dimension. You know, you want to talk about bands that have had a really great comeback album. Aerosmith, hands down, Music from Another Dimension, really great album. And I actually ended up getting a deluxe edition, which had included 3 bonus tracks. And, you know, all the distractions that was coming from Steven Tyler doing the American Idol, possibly being the new singer of Led Zeppelin, doing the silly little Burger King commercials. You know, he finally got all that put to the side and he focused on business at hand, which is making some good kick-ass music with Aerosmith. And really nice to see him, Joe Perry, other bandmates. You know, they were able to squash whatever was going on between each other and get into the studio, make some really good, solid stuff. Steven Tyler leaving American Idol, good move. I really enjoyed this album. There are so many standout tracks on this album. I found myself listening to the album over and over again. Now, as I said, I ended up getting the deluxe edition, and for this deluxe edition, there's 3 bonus tracks you get, and it seems like there is a bit of a switch off, and it happens throughout the whole album. Good majority of the album, it's Steven Tyler on vocals. Joe Perry steps in, does a little singing for a little bit. Another band member comes in, does a little bit of singing. And, you know, it's one of those type of albums that, you know, it works good. But for the bonus tracks for the deluxe edition, I would skip the ones with Joe and the other guy. I wouldn't have anything to do with them. Just go with the one that Tyler is on. Put that into your whole album, and boom, you're good to go. But you know, I'd have to give the Music from Another Dimension album, hands down, I'm going to give it the highest rating I think is suitable for it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think it was a really great album, and the reason why I'm not even picking out particular tracks is because practically every single track kicks ass. I only found myself skipping one song. And unfortunately, I can't think of the name of it right now, but can't stress it enough. Music from Another Dimension, great album. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. You can thank me later. And, you know, Tammy, you know, it brings up a very valid point, and I want to mention this quickly as I want to talk about two, 3 quick serious things, then we'll try to see if we can open up the phone lines. You know, which is, you know, some of these bands that we see reforming, getting together. You know, we see Rolling Stone, they're doing something. Soundgarden's, you know, they're back together. Aerosmith's back together. You know, we see Billy Corgan trying to do his thing with this newly reformed Smashing Pumpkins. You know, we see all these acts that are coming back, you know. Is it really about the money? Or, you know, does it really boil down to these guys just wanting to see if they can, as you said earlier, capture that magic and see if they can have one last hurrah before they hang it up? Because, you know, some would sit up and look at bands like Soundgarden. And Billy Corgan was very critical of Soundgarden. And interview that he had gave a couple of months back, basically slamming the band, saying that, they really have no business getting back together because, basically they're just trying to be all about the money. What do you say, when you hear stuff like that, or some of the other respected bands that you know of, that you've come across in recent years, where you hear those stories that they're possibly reforming for the money?
Well, you have both sides. You have both people, they are coming back strictly to see if they can recapture the magic. Or you have, you know what, a little extra, little change in my pocket couldn't hurt. Why not? I'm really not doing anything else. But, you have a couple things. One is the people behind the band, the people that are doing the lyrics and finding the songs, and, so many people that make them what they are. When you start trading out players, if you personally don't gel with them like you did with someone else and really try to recapture that, it's really, really tough, especially for the expectations of the people who are listening to the music to remember what they had. Now, okay, now this is what it was then, and this is what it is now. Mm-hmm. Very tough for some people, especially for the hardcore fans. The hardcore fans are going to listen to it because it's the band that they love.
Right.
But the casual listener is going to be like, yeah, pass.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. And, there's a very interesting article that I had read, just to switch gears up a little bit, and because originally this episode, it was very close to just being recorded. We had already laid out what all we wanted to talk about on the show, and we originally were just going to do pre-taped, but like in the wee hours of the night, we were hit like with a 1-2 punch, and it was like, damn. And, of course, in case you all haven't heard by now, Larry, help me out, Tammy.
Hagman. Larry Hagman.
Yeah, Larry Hagman, best known for his iconic role as J.R. Ewing, the villain there in the original CBS series Dallas. He unfortunately had lost his battle due to complications of cancer, age of 81, lost his battle on Friday, but it wasn't officially announced until the wee hours this morning. And it just sent shockwaves throughout the whole entertainment community. And, it's so funny because he had just came back to sign on for TNT's reboot of Dallas, and he had did one whole complete season. He had just got done doing several episodes for the second season as TNT had renewed them, and couldn't come at a more messed up time right now. But, on a good note, all his family were by his side on Thanksgiving Day. And, when you hear something like that, you go, man. And it's so funny because John Bradshaw Layfield, he posted an article on his Facebook page, and we actually have it up at our website. And we also have that up on, you can check it out on John Bradshaw Layfield's website on Facebook and at his home website. He had talked about how he owed a lot of his JBL character to the J.R. Ewing character, and it was a really great in-depth reading. He pretty much had talked about the way he came about the JBL character and how some people didn't see it, and really great read right there. And it was just very unfortunate. Of course, I remember him as the Major in I Dream of Jeannie. But for me, definitely he was the villain you love to hate on Dallas. I could remember that long run that they had there. Of course, who shot JR? You can't forget that episode. Well, anyway, folks, it looks like having a little bad static connection right there. We'll try to see if we can get her back on. But, very unfortunate news that had happened right there. I know that when it comes to the show itself, I mean, that's the very good question that's being asked right now is, what's going to happen with Dallas? And, I mean, quite honestly, a lot of people will say you can't do Dallas unless you have Larry. Tammy, would you agree with that?
They're going to have a really hard time trying to regroup from that kind of a loss, because from what I heard is pretty much the revamped Dallas pretty much picked up where it left off, prior to JR being shot. Or, as far as that whole segment of who shot JR, and then afterwards, it still survived, but they're all really going to have to step up if that show's going to really try to recapture some of what they just lost.
Should they recast the role? Or do you think it's become so iconic, or do you think it's a case where it's become so iconic, his name is so synonymous with that character that they can't recast?
That is a really tough question. Honestly, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have a really hard time trying to believe someone else is J.R. Ewing. So, honestly, I really don't think that they should recast him.
I don't think so either.
I think they should go with some kind of another storyline to, maybe as far as Patrick Duffy's character, kind of like they did, back when. As far as, having him step up or do, something with another one of the characters and really make strong stories, as strong as the one that they had with the feud between the brothers. That's going to be a really tough task.
It's very similar to what went down on the daytime soap One Life to Live. The actor that played Asa Buchanan, he had passed a couple of years ago. And, the producers, everybody, they had just respected his performance as Asa Buchanan so much because he had been doing it for a couple of decades that, when he passed, they didn't even try to typecast. They just went on ahead and they actually did an episode where it was his funeral and, they did their own way of paying homage to him. But yeah, our deepest wishes, condolences to the family, friends, and fans. That guy's definitely going to be missed. I want to switch it up a little bit, tell a lighter story, and I thought this was a really funny story right here, and I'm going to be brief with this because I want to try to see if we can open up the phone lines right here. We were I came across this story, and it was freaking silly. There was this police officer that had sat up, and he had gave a $3,000 fine to a 3-year-old kid because he found the child urinating in his front yard. And the key words here, this guy is a police officer. Now, of course, he's been fired for giving the ticket to the 3-year-old. When you hear that, though, let me set this up. It was issued on November 4th, and he slapped the fine on the mother of the 3-year-old kid after, he was caught urinating, front garden. And, the mom, she was very outraged. Who wouldn't be? And it just created a big, huge firestorm, and boom, the guy was fired. Tammy, your thoughts?
That is so unnecessary. I mean, that guy must have had one hell of a bad day, or was really just tired of the crap. But, I mean, really, man, he's 3. Grant you, does he need a few more minutes of parental guidance? Yeah, probably. But you don't. I mean, really, how is he going to to really figure out that he did something bad, because the parents are really the ones paying for it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So it just doesn't make any sense at all. Besides to basically send a message, but I tell you what, looks like the parents sent a bigger message because he got fired.
Oh man, I don't know, man. But when I hear something like that, I think what happened is, I think this cop has been watching too much of FX's hit series, The Shield. I think he thought he could emulate Vic Mackey. Obviously, he got put in his place real quick. I'm just going to leave that alone. That's got to be the most stupidest thing I've heard for 2012. It's like, hey, dude, at some point, you had to take a piss somewhere. Somebody had to wipe your ass. I mean, he's 3 years old, man. I mean, it's a freaking little kid. I would hate to be the father of that guy. I'd hate to see what happens if you're 18 months old and you defecate on yourself. I mean, my God, he probably pops a gasket. Of course, we got to mention this before we open up the phone lines, and we only got about 10 minutes left, so we got to try to wrap it up here. Of course, we want to send our deepest prayers, condolences, best wishes to the Hector Camacho family as Puerto Rican boxer. Hector Camacho, he had died in Puerto Rico. Now, just earlier in the week, he was shot in the face, and looks like he had died. I believe it was on Friday. 50 years old, had built a reputation of being a flamboyant boxer. As leading up to his matches, fans were known to be cheering, "It's Macho time," and was really known to be one of the top fighters for his respected generation. And he fought professionally for 3 decades. And, when you hear something like that, it's, Now, reports are coming in from Puerto Rico police that they discovered cocaine inside the car, which Hector Macho Camacho was shot and critically wounded in. But, I'm not going to even touch that. It's one of those, wait it out, see more information as it becomes available right there. Looked as a hero in many Mexican parts, especially in Puerto Rico there. All right, let's go ahead. Let's open up the phone lines here. And number to call, as always, 646-478-3525. Once again, that's 646-478-3525. We only got a couple of minutes left. Feel free to call on in. Let's go to our good buddy, Dave from the Michigan area. Dave, you live, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good, man.
Man, I was going to come on and talk about wrestling and all this, but, I mean, hearing about these legendary actors, it seems like this week really coming out about dying, and, like, how would they with Dallas? Would they write it into the show and say goodbye to the character?
Right.
Or would they do something different? I mean, because we've seen that happen this week on daytime TV where they said goodbye to a legendary actor.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, on General
Yeah,
Hospital.
I mean, that was really well written, too.
Yeah, it's been a weird week.
Yeah, I mean, just to hear that name, though, because like you were saying, the Major from Ultimate Genie, it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Because I remember growing up, I'm 30 years old, and I remember growing up on that stuff, like Who Shot JR and all that old primetime special.
Mm-hmm.
And just that whole thing, and then now the reboot looks like it's in trouble.
Yeah, it's in serious trouble now, yeah.
Now, do you like any... We've been talking a lot the last few weeks, we've been doing the weekend edition about older bands. All these old bands making comebacks. And let's not forget that wrestling isn't the only reason we love the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of great music came from the 80s and 90s, too.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to relive that, it almost seems like today.
Yeah.
Everyone is almost.
Yeah.
Do you like any new bands right now? Like new, not just like coming back, but new ones altogether.
There's a couple of new bands that's kind of caught my attention a little bit. I know I like the Killers. Who's another one? that I like. There's a real short handful of new bands that I like, unfortunately. I know I just started diving into the Lady Gaga catalog, and I got to thank Zed for that, because he sat up and was like, look at this Cake video from Lady Gaga. I said, Cake? What the? And now I'm a little bit curious how the music sounds right there. But it's funny because we always get bombarded with emails from these new bands that want to try to come onto the show, and I listen to their music, and the music just absolutely sucks. And I'm like, really? You're coming at me with this? There's a select few, I won't say underground, but it's really, how can I put it? I'm more, and I think Co-Producer Tammy can agree with me, I'm the type of guy, I favor the bands from the 80s and the 90s. I favor them more because what's happening in today's music spectrum, and I don't just mean with rock, in just all respected areas, it seems like music has lost substance. It seems like music has lost meaning. And Tammy, I know you pointed out many times, because you're big on country, you always say, hey, country music is where you got to be right now, because music still is worth a damn in country.
Actually, I've heard that from not just myself, but many other people who, you know, kind of think about other genres and what they are used to, and it's really gone so differently in all genres of music, you know, to where you have Nicki Minaj and you know, honestly, I still feel, and I've been a country fan for a long time, but the music has gone less country and more towards a little bit of the pop, but it's
too much pop.
It has, yeah, it is a lot less. You know, it's much more of a mixture now, and they're acquiring fans all the time. Yeah. You know, people that I'm looking at and would think that would never listen to country music in the, you know, in my wildest dreams are saying, yeah, I listened to a little bit of that, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know. And, you know, somebody asked me the other day, you know, hey, Lee, you know, where can you learn a thing or two about, you know, hard rock music or metal music? And I always tell them, if you really want to know what's going on, go to Eddie Trunk's website, eddietrunk.com. You know, that's a guy I respect, great high regard. Tammy, you know, I'm a huge fan of his. That metal show, can't stress it enough. You know, you like your hard rock music and all that, you know, that's the show for you. You can backtrack, check out all the episodes, and they really give you great insight on some cool stuff that's out. And, you know, but nowadays I kind of find myself being a fan of the old school stuff. But from time to time, you know, I do come across new acts. And, you know, when I do come across new acts, new music that I like, of course, I do share it all, you know, with you guys and let you know about it. Good question there. All right, I think that's going to do it. You know, I don't know. We might have to start thinking about how we're going to do this weekend edition, because we have so much content and we want to bring in the phone calls, but I don't like feeling like we're being rushed off the air, you know. We're going to have to, you know, talk about that when we go off the air, Co-Producer Tammy. In the meantime, that's going to do it, folks. Do thank those of you that checked out today's episode. Hopefully you guys are having a relaxing Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see you guys this Tuesday night for the Wrestling Report edition of the RCWR show. We have a little bit of announcement that we'll make on that episode, as we'll have a special guest that'll be stopping by the studio within the next coming weeks. Give you details on that this Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. For now, you all be safe and be kind to one another, folks. We'll see you next time. Do take care.